We learned the release month of the first DLC for Assassin's Creed Shadows, the Claws of Awaji. Is it good news? Is it bad news? A ton to go over, so let's get into it right here. Link to Tom Henderson's article will of course be in the video description. Assassin's Creed Claws of Awaji DLC is targeting a September release. That's according to sources familiar with the continued development of Assassin's Creed Shadows, who say that the pushback of Ubisoft's major IP has not affected the development pipeline of Shadows. So this regarding Far Cry 7 coming out next year instead of this year, Ghost Recon being later, etc, etc. That being said, it was mentioned that the DLC could be pushed back to October, which will depend on Ubisoft's release strategy for its upcoming DLC and game releases. I want to say this, don't release it in October for a very obvious reason. On October 2nd, Ghost of Yotei comes out. I really think that for this DLC to make an impact, the impact that Ubisoft wants, they have to launch it in September. And I think it has to be early September. Like, you want to get out of the way of this game, because after this, I mean, I do think people will still play Shadows after Yotei, but that will be like November at the earliest. So let's look at the timeline for Shadows. So we know the next update will be on May 27th, because that is when the collaboration drops. They have been doing 3-week updates. So that means that we get the other update on June 17th. Then we get the other update on July 8th. Then another one on July 29th. Then another one on August 19th. And then another one on September 9th. And that is when you want to drop this DLC. Of course, updates could be 4 weeks as well. Right now they have been 3 weeks. So I hope that that is what they are going to do. But that is where you want to drop this DLC. Because otherwise we're looking at September 30th, which is like the same week as Ghost of Yotei. That is really a no-go. And to be honest, I overall think it's really late. I thought we would be playing the DLC either this month or in June at the latest. If you look, for example, at the Origins post-launch plan, we see the first DLC for that game. The game came out end of October. So then you have November, December, January, 3 months after launch. They already had the first DLC. And then 2 months after that, you had the second one, which was of course way bigger. And the Claws of Awaji, 10 hours, it will have a new weapon, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, it will be bigger than Hidden Ones, but it will not be as big as Curse of the Pharaohs. So that is already, I think, interesting. And then, of course, for Odyssey, we had a pretty robust timeline here too. The game came out early October. They launched the first episode in December, second in January. I think this was in February, then April. Then June, then July. I think the Legacy of the First Blade is the same size as Claws of Awaji if you like combine everything. So basically these things launched way faster. This is comparable though to what we saw for Valhalla. That game came out in November, and then Wrath of the Druids, also made by Ubisoft Bordeaux, just like Claws of Awaji, came out on May 13th, 2021. So that is also 6 months after launch, and that is what we're looking at here with Shadows 2. And you already kind of noticed that the hype kind of went downwards. Like we had the River Raids, we had the Yule Festival, we had another festival, and then the DLC dropped. Not a lot of people were still around. Obviously, it will maybe be different with Claws of Awaji because a lot of people got it for free because they pre-ordered the game. So maybe that will be different. But then, and this is where it gets interesting, the second DLC for Valhalla launched in August. So that is from May, so June, July, August, 3 months later. So if the Claws of Awaji DLC launches in September, you would hope that the second DLC launches in December for this year. We already know Ubisoft has something planned, or they want to do something for Christmas to put Shadows in the mindset of people again. A second DLC would of course be huge. And we know that there is a second DLC coming, because this was when they revealed Shadows. This was the season pass they first sold to upcoming expansions. So they already have a second DLC that they've not announced yet planned too. And you would hope that, just like Valhalla, that comes out 3 months after Claws of Awaji. But with the whole post-launch for Shadows being very slow, like it starts up very slow, I wouldn't be surprised if this like February 2026, which kind of crazy to me, but we will have to see. With the whole Shadows post-launch kind of starting slow and picking back up seemingly later on, I do worry that we will not see the same timeline as those previous RPG games, because they all say here, year 1 post-launch roadmap, and also only drop like Claws of Awaji as like optional paid content. Now, of course, this goes till June, so I'm not sure if there are some surprises that they've not announced here, which could include the other DLC. But yeah, that would maybe mean that we get the second expansion for Shadows a year after release. And we never see that for Ubisoft games. Also, if you look at like their most recent titles, Star Wars Outlaws got the first DLC in November already. Game came out in August. So September, October, November. 3 months after launch, they already had the first expansion. And the Pirate's Fortune that I'm playing actually currently just came out, so May. So also here you have it like 9 months after launch. Like that is again where that's again I think a good spot for the second DLC. But it might be that it's later for Shadows. And we also had kind of similar for Avatar. The first DLC came kind of later. Game launched of course in December, and then summer. I think this was June. And then, of course, the final DLC came out. They are seemingly going to repackage this for like the movie and put another spotlight on the game. Good on them. I only played the first DLC, but I might go back for the second one. But that is not important. Basically, my point is that maybe I was like expecting too much when they were during the Assassin's Creed Showcase so upfront about wanting to support Shadows longer. They were like, yo, we learned that we can support these RPG games for longer. We don't have to release another game on top of it. So I was like, okay, they are prepared, right? They got the stuff. I mean, we will have to wait and see. I hope they still surprise us with stuff. But it does seem that it's way later than, yeah, we kind of are used to. Like, Ubisoft showed how they could do stuff. And with Shadows, it seems like they are taking their time. So we also learned some other things. In addition to the Claws of Awaji DLC, sources tell me that Shadow's upcoming co-op mode, currently codenamed Leak, is still in development and intended to release sometime next year. Again, that was of course also with Valhalla really, really cool. A year after the release of Valhalla, they dropped the biggest free update that we ever saw for an Assassin's Creed game. The crossover, of course, with Cassandra and Eivor, and they also added like 3 hours of new content to Odyssey. This was huge, and it was just really, really cool to see, and this really helped make December, the month after, or a year after Valhalla's release, the biggest month for the game, next to the release month, because, yeah, they added a ton of free content. So, with them saying, yo, we want to do something in December, or we want to, yeah, make sure the game is like a great seller for people who missed out on it during March or whatever, I do expect something like this right here. December 14th is when this came out. That was big. But I first thought, okay, that's gonna be the co-op mode. But no, that's seemingly sometime next year. And I think that's interesting because they also have another multiplayer Assassin's Creed game seemingly dropping next year, or maybe at the end of this one. Yeah, so it's coming later. Sometime next year could be anything. But we learned a bit more about it, though. I still think it could be cool. But also, like, it's of course overall, we have Assassin's Creed Shadows going to Japan, of course. Ghost of Tsushima beat them to it. They did a really cool co-op mode that was so... I expect that to be much more in-depth than the co-op mode for Shadows. I hope I'm wrong. But of course, Ghost of Tsushima Legends was amazing. 4 classes, a lot of like co-op only missions, even like a 4-player co-op mode, a survival wave-based mode, and a raid. I still think that's some of the biggest free update that we've ever seen for a single-player game. Obviously, it was a co-op mode, but it was huge. And that launched 3 months after Ghost of Tsushima. Like, that was insane. It was such a cool surprise. Now, yeah, it will probably be a year or longer. I still hope it's cool, though. I still think it could be cool, the gameplay of Shadows, but with friends. I think that could be awesome. So, previously, I had presumed that the co-op mode will allow you to play as Nawe and Yasuke to fight side by side. However, I'm told that this isn't entirely accurate. One source says that while they're obviously central characters, there is a deeper narrative tied to the co-op that will expand the experience beyond just the two of them. I think this is still kind of fake, so presumably you'll be able to play as more than just Naoe and Yasuke. Look, my take still is we're not gonna play Naoe or Yasuke. I think it would be really weird because then people would be like, hey, why can I not bring all my gear with me through this co-op mode? I think the co-op mode will be a reset. It will be everyone starting fresh again with new characters that will function as classes and that will actually be able to work together. You don't want a Naoe player working together with Yasuke who will break doors, and then the Naoe players, I wanted to do this stealth. Well, I'm not. Boom, boom. It doesn't work together. You get what I mean? So it's kind of, I wish that he would like get a concrete answer here. But yeah, this quote is interesting. I think League also, maybe we play the allies that they introduced, but I think they will just create like completely new characters that we can hopefully customize. Kind of like the classes from Ghost of Tsushima Legends. But yeah, that's gonna be pretty big, but it will be a long time before we see it. As for other Assassin's Creed projects though, including an 18-player multiplayer title codenamed Invictus. So this was, will be interesting. Will be like Fall Guys, like, it will not be like Fall Guys, but it will be like Tom Anderson said, like a Colosseum, and then you have multiple rounds, and every round a few people fall off, and then you want to be the last person standing. And Assassin's Creed Black Flag Remake, codenamed Obsidian. It was said that both games are progressing well, but final release dates will depend on Ubisoft's new strategy, which is yet to be conveyed to the employees. So basically, they don't really have all the blocks in place yet, and that is maybe when they finally revealed the post-launch roadmap for Shadows, that they did not put a month on Claws of Awaji, because they're kind of moving things around. Maybe they want to make sure there's every month something cool for Assassin's Creed. So then you have Claws of Awaji in September, maybe Black Flag in November, maybe Invictus in February. So then you want in those other months some cool updates for Shadows. I'm just spitballing here, but let me overall know what you, of course, think of all this. Again, I'm fine overall with it. I am kind of disappointed. I do think that waiting 6 months for DLC, like with Valhalla, they had the COVID excuse. They also worked on that game they had a way shorter development time than Valhalla. Now they already delayed Shadows, so I thought, okay, maybe the deal. Like, what if Shadows came out in November? Would we then also have Claws of Awaji in September? That would have been kind of brutal, but maybe that would have been the case. Either way, again, curious to hear your take. Subscribe, of course, for more, and I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.